Hello friends.
Hi guys.
We had an incident yesterday and I caught part of it on camera and I struggled with whether I should release it or not because as a creator you never know how people are going to interpret your creation or your footage, and I've come to the realization that a lot of people out there, they only want you to tell them whatever it is they want to hear. But Imabel, what happened yesterday?
Yesterday we were trying to get a cab and the cab driver tried to overcharge us, and I said, just use the meter please. Suddenly he got extremely angry and aggressive. In fact, he pushed Travis.
Yes, and unfortunately I don't have the very beginning on camera, and the reason is because we were on our way to a shoot and my mind was on getting to the job on time and about doing that job. Also, like, this all happened very fast, and when you have to take the camera out of your pocket and get it turned on, that takes a few seconds. But the main reason is, since he got very aggressive and angry, I had to be very conscious of what he was doing with his body, where his hands were in case he tries to throw a punch out of the blue. And there was a concern with safety, so that was my priority other than shooting a video. But he was very angry, and then once I got the camera out and turned on, I told him, look, you're on camera, and made him very aware. Then he started trying to play it off as a joke, but let's take a look at the footage from where it started recording.
You're on
camera.
Huh? You're handsome. Huh? This is Philippines.
I
I know it's the Philippines.
Yeah.
Shouldn't you be more welcoming
I don't know.
than trying to screw
Yeah.
us over?
Okay, let's go, let's go. Your wife.
Why don't you just
okay,
take us
this
on the
tricycle.
metro?
Tricycle.
Why don't you just
Oh,
take us on
this
the
one, this
metro?
one.
Yeah.
Oh, this one. Oh, okay.
Well, sorry you don't get to screw us over.
Okay, that's good. All right, man.
All right.
All right, man.
Thanks for welcoming me.
Okay, you will come here in Philippines. Welcome.
Okay, all right, thank you.
You're take her.
What?
Take her. Take your time.
Okay.
Take
All
her,
right.
man.
All right, bye-bye. That guy got aggressive. He kind of even pushed me. But sometimes you gotta let things slide. But I just want to show you guys that even though I always say the Philippines is the most friendly country in the world, and I truly believe that, yeah, there's an issue, especially with cab drivers, of course. I still believe that taking cabs is actually the best way to get around, at least around Metro Manila. But definitely you have a lot of crazy guys, especially, you know, being a foreigner, he's gonna wanna try and charge you more, not want to use the meter, but you can't fall for that, my friends. You gotta be a little bit wise, and you know, in another minute or so, another cab came by and this guy picked us up and he's gonna use the meter, not a big deal.
I kinda got worried because he looked like he could punch you anytime.
He actually pushed me, but then when I showed him that I was recording him, then he tried to kind of joke around and play it off, but
I know, but he looked
I had to keep my cool there and, you know, just let things slide.
I was like thinking, you don't want to be punched in the face. We're gonna go to a shoot.
Yeah, we're going to my shoot.
Like,
I'm gonna show up with a black
you were
eye.
holding the camera, and he was like all.
I was conscious though.
His
I was.
hands were all free, and I was holding. I was like.
I know, but I was still
was
pretty
occupied.
conscious. I was always keeping it in mind for
I was like thinking,
positioning.
anytime I could be ready to just punch.
I wasn't that worried. I was keeping presence of mind. When you're dealing with someone very aggressive like that, it's very important that you stay very aware of the situation, understand where they are, especially their hands. Make sure your hands are not down at your side, so you know, if he does try and throw, you can put up some sort of defense. I actually knew when we first saw that guy, when he came out and started talking to us, I knew there was going to be a problem right away, just by the very vibe he put out. You know, people put out these signals and it's not too hard to read them. So check out the meter. The other cab driver demanded we pay him 150. The fare ended up being only 61 pesos. Well, that was the footage, at least from what we got to capture.
Yes, before that footage, actually, he was extremely angry and loud and aggressive. And I was thinking, anytime he might attack Travis, I would just be ready to punch him anytime, to be ready. And I was like thinking, I wouldn't want Travis's face to be hit before the shoot, right?
It's amazing that I promote people visiting the Philippines. I know the Philippines has a Department of Tourism saying come over, but then there's these guys that just for a small amount of money want to get very greedy and selfish and be very aggressive with foreigners instead of trying to welcome them to the country and make sure they have a good experience. It's like they're making them have bad experiences by trying to take advantage of them. But I always tell people that the best way to get around Metro Manila, it's not the MRT, it's not jeepneys. You can take that stuff for the experience of having it, but I truly believe the best and most convenient way to get around Metro Manila as a tourist is taxi cabs. But the thing is, a lot of them are very shady. So if you value your safety and your life, you might want to listen to some of the tips that we're going to try and give you now to help you out. Isabel, what would you like to say that they should be aware of in terms of staying safe when they take cabs?
Right. To get a cab, I would give you 3 suggestions, 3 simple tips on how to get a cab safely, or a safe way to get a cab. First, it is common in malls and even at the airport to have a cab key or a taxi bay, so you can get that. The security guard usually keep track. They list down the plate number when you take it. And then another way is to call the landline number of some cab companies who have that service. Or they also have apps now that you can download and use that when you want to get a cab.
Absolutely. And there's some issues though. We hear a lot of horror stories about taking cabs. We've experienced a lot of bad cab drivers. It seems like whenever you get a cab, half the time the cab driver is really awesome and they just sit there quietly, they just run the meter, take you to wherever you want to go, and it's very easy to get around. But then the other 50% of the time you encounter a very shady cab driver that's that most of the time is going to try and gouge you for money or try and do something else to put you at risk. There's those stories going around that we see a lot these days in the news of, what's that thing where they have something come through the vent to knock people unconscious?
Yeah, like what he mentioned, many people have already posted it online to warn other cab passengers. There's this thing in the cab that they put, I think like a kind of smell, or I'm not really sure what it is.
Like a gas.
Yeah, that can make you unconscious or can suffocate you, and when you're unconscious they can just rob you or whatever.
Rob you or rape you. A lot of women, they've reported getting raped that way, or they come to and the guy's doing something. So those are the motivations. They have some sort of gas that comes through the ventilation through the air conditioning unit, and it makes you fall asleep. And then when you're unconscious, they're either going to take your money, or if you're female, obviously you're at a lot of risk for rape, and a lot of women have been reporting that. So that's one thing to be on the lookout for. Another thing, I've heard a lot of stories about how cab drivers, they'll take you down an alleyway or someplace, then they'll stop and they'll have a gang get out that's either going to kidnap you or rob you, which I think that one is a little bit less common. But one of the most common issues with taking cabs are they're going to do various different techniques to try and get more money out of you. One time we experienced going to a different shoot, they had the meter so it was sped up. We were using the meter, but like I'm sitting there watching the meter go up and I'm thinking, boy, this is getting expensive. This is way more than it usually should be. Mm-hmm. And we got charged all this money. I think it was around 400 or 500 pesos. And then going home from that location, and we went home in heavy traffic where it should cost a lot more, the price was half. So he had the meter sped up to probably over double whatever it should be. Or another common thing, which we experience all the time, you'll get in the cab, and a lot of the times you take the cab, not just for, part of the convenience is comfort. You want to just sit there and relax while you go to your destination, but the cab driver will start telling you some sort of sob story of why he's down on his luck, trying to get you to give him more money. And recently we had an incident where he didn't talk to me, he actually talked to you, and he was speaking in Filipino the whole time. I knew exactly what he's doing. He started telling this story about, oh, my meter, it's broken, it's running half the speed it should be going, and I'm just ignoring the dude. And then we get to the destination, it was 150 is what the meter said, but then I was going to give him 170. Usually I tip a little bit to be nice. That's not really even customary. But then he complained, no, 300. I told you my meter's running slow. And it's like, dude, that's your problem. You ended up giving him, I believe, 200. Really, I want to pay him nothing after all that. But I want you guys to stay safe, because definitely we don't want you to get robbed, we don't want you to get ripped off, we don't want you to have something even worse like a rape or a vicious beating happen to you. So if you value your life, hopefully you keep conscious and you keep aware of these things. And Imabel, is there anything else that you'd like to say?
Yes, these are the basic tips that I would give you when you take a cab. First, as soon as you get in the cab, you tell the driver, if you have to, you remind the driver, please just use the meter, because they can overcharge you. And if they ask for something more, you should just, if you think he deserves a tip or something, considering the traffic and all that, maybe you can give him something.
It's okay to give tips, especially in situations, but don't let people pressure you into feeling uncomfortable. And I know a lot of people, they're very polite, especially when they go to another country and they're worried about offending people. What I would say is my most important tip in general: listen to your gut, listen to your instincts. If you're getting bad vibes from a driver or anyone, don't take that particular cab if you can avoid it. Or here's something that's very important: if you're already in the cab, this will happen a lot of the times, you don't know. You get into the cab, then they start harassing you, and they start telling you need to actually pay them more. What I would suggest in that situation is get out of the cab, whatever the current meter's on there, just pay it. Or if time is of the essence and you really feel that it's a very situation where you're under a threat, don't feel the need to try and be polite to the guy. Do something like, well, you want to get out of the cab as soon as possible. Don't worry about hurting the dude's feelings. One good tip I would say is try and get him to go down a crowded one-way street, especially if there's lots of traffic. And then as soon as they get on that one-way street, get out of the cab and walk the opposite direction, because they can't just turn around since it's a one-way street and follow you. And do that, I would say, and don't worry about hurting the feelings. Always look out for your safety first, even if it's going to make someone upset at you. Don't worry about it. You got to look out for number one.
Yes, and I mentioned earlier, one option to get a cab safely is to call the company. As soon as you get in the cab, it's when they are supposed to start the meter running. According to the company, when I talked to them one time, I said, one of your cab drivers just charged me the amount that I saw it. It's more than the meter. They said, if that happens again, call us to complain so we can do something about it. Another thing is, when you get in the cab, try to get the plate number, the cab name and or the cab body number, and text it to a friend, just so in case what happens, someone knows what cab you're taking.
And always listen to your instincts, my friends. Stay safe out there.